They pull the cargo documentation for Flight 592 and discover that the plane was transporting 3 tires and 5 cardboard boxes containing 144 empty stainless steel oxygen generators. Oxygen generators are small devices installed above the passenger seats of certain airplanes. They're connected to oxygen masks that drop down in the event of cabin depressurization. When deployed, several chemicals combine to create oxygen. The chemical reaction generates a lot of heat. The canisters can reach 500 degrees Fahrenheit.
These things get pretty hot, Greg. Really hot.
An oxygen generator that is not mounted in its proper position in a heat sink cradle in the passenger service unit is lethal, because if it's anywhere near a combustible material, you're going to have a fire.
Regulations require that all oxygen generators removed from an aircraft be deactivated and emptied of volatile chemicals before transporting.
We had 5 boxes of these, or 144 of them, thrown in a box, carried as cargo. They're supposedly empty. What danger is there carrying them as cargo?
There's no question. They're clearly listed as empty.
Investigators wonder whether the oxygen generators were improperly dismantled before shipping.
Did they have a potential for creating a fire or a fire situation that could have jeopardized the safety of this aircraft?
Recovery teams in the field catch a lucky break and recover a batch of oxygen generators at the bottom of the Everglades. The discovery confirms their hunch. While some of them are empty,
This one's never even been triggered.
many others are full.
The oxygen generators that we had found had been damaged. Some were completely flattened, some of them were charred and crushed, some of them still had the material in them, but the case had been dented and damaged.
It now seems that the highly volatile chemicals were shipped on board ValueJet 592. Had the pilots known what was actually on board, it's unlikely they would have signed off on the manifest.
There you go.
But to prove their theory, investigators need to find out how the canisters got on the flight and how they might have ignited. Hazardous materials specialist Jim Henderson joins the investigative team to figure out how highly volatile oxygen generators were shipped on ValueJet Flight 592 as cargo. He tracks down shipping papers and uncovers a shocking mistake. The shipping clerk mislabeled the generators as empty, when in fact they were merely past their expiration date.
Did someone actually think that expired meant empty?
This was a big problem because these oxygen generators weren't empty. They had expired, but expiration just meant that they had exceeded their shelf life. They were still capable of generating oxygen. They hadn't been properly safed. They hadn't been properly packaged. So we were really concerned that this might be either what caused the accident or what made the fire worse.
Investigators conclude that airport workers loaded potentially flammable cargo onto ValueJet 592 because of an error in shipping papers. But the mistake still doesn't explain how the fire spread to the rest of the plane. The DC-9's cargo hold is airtight. It's specifically designed to contain a fire. But if oxygen generators were creating their own oxygen, could the cargo hold still contain the fire?
We knew about the oxygen generators, we knew the potential they had for being a fire source, but we didn't really know their real potential for bringing down an aircraft.
At a Federal Aviation Administration fire test facility,
Okay, let's do this.
investigators hope to recreate the fire that consumed Flight 592.
We put 5 boxes of oxygen generators, put them on top of a tire, and put some luggage around them.
1 minute to ignition.
we had to trigger one of the oxygen generators manually.
Investigators activate one of the generators to simulate a canister being jostled in the cargo hold during takeoff.
It made an unbelievable noise. It was a high-pitched scream. We all looked at each other. We were kind of startled. I mean, the sound was deafening.
Ten minutes after ignition, the ceiling of the test cargo container reaches 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Lord almighty.
We had a raging fire, and none of us had expected a fire to be that big and that hot. And it was just amazing to see how destructive something this long and that big around could be.